Hey, welcome to the Portakeeper YouTube channel. Today I'm doing part 1 of 2. It's a look at this DF83 grinder. And I've seen a lot of people talking about they feel like there's quite a few fines, especially when they do pour overs. So what I did was I got out my Groove sifter and I actually set it up for pour over, even though, is that what, okay, I set it up for drip, even though I typically do pour over. So drip, it's a low end of 600, high end of 1200. Pour over is pretty similar. So that's how we set this up. We have the 1200 on the top. We have the 600 on the bottom. And we're gonna see really just how many fines are getting through and maybe how many like big chunk boulders are on top. If you've not used a Groove, in my opinion, it's pretty easy for me to diagnose an espresso shot, but it's much more difficult for me to diagnose like a Chemex or a V60. So if you know the range that you're looking for, you can set your screens accordingly and sift your, like wherever your setting is. You can say, okay, I'm on 50 and it's an acceptable particle distribution. So that's really what we're going to do today. We have it on setting 50, and this is what I usually use for like V60 Chemex in this grinder. It might not be the perfect setting for everyone and every bean, but I've been using these beans. We're just going to do a standard, I don't know, let's do 18 grams. We're just going to do a standard 18 gram. I use this a lot for AeroPress. It's not on an espresso setting, but you could use it for espresso. Some of the Chemex I usually try to go up a little bit more, like 20 to 24 in V60. So we're going to throw that 18 in. Let's grind it. Very fast, especially on setting 50. I mean, that took all of 2 to 3 seconds. Use the bellow. Extremely low retention on this grinder so far. I've taken it apart even in a video, and it was just pretty sparkling clean. So we have the 2 layers, and I want to sift these 2 layers. I want to make sure to get all the chaff and anything stuck to the sides out. Because what we're really looking for here is the fines. The part 2 of this video I plan to do on a more espresso setting. So here we are. I've done this before. And it can take a while to sift this coffee, especially through these small holes. This is a pretty large set of sifters on top. But I don't think we're going to have very many of these boulders, as people tend to refer to them. Make sure we get them all. So there's our 1200. So you can see it. There's our 1200 screen and some of the chunks that we get. And this isn't really an unacceptable amount of the boulders. It's pretty standard. You have to have a particle distribution. And then this is the next layer. I kind of want to put these together. It looks like there's quite a few fines kind of sticking around the edge. Let's mix things up, make sure that it's going to sift well. This isn't going to get everything, but it should be a pretty good representation of what you're getting. There's some fines sticking to the corner, but it's just going to be what it's going to be. And there's our 600 rating. Just beautiful. Look at that. So according to this chart, let me zoom out, everything in this layer is really what we're looking for. So if I lay them all three out, that's the amount of fines. And almost, they weren't kidding that there's quite a few fines coming out of this grinder. These are below 600. I'll probably take these two screens out and we're gonna see about how small they go. But it has, I would say, a fairly wide particle distribution. Let's zoom in on this. And these are just really fine. I mean, there's my finger. Really fine coffee grounds. So quick comparison, we'll just do it real quick. There's your boulders, not many of those, the 1200. Here's kind of what we're looking for. The smaller than 1200, bigger than 600. And this is everything less than 600. So I'll weigh this out real quick. I don't want to dump it and make a huge mess, but I'll try to do a quick weight comparison just so that we can say, here's where we're at on the weights before I sift this again. So here's the 1200. We're at about 1.1 grams. Here's the smaller than 1200 but bigger than 600. 9.9 grams. And finally, this is less than 600 and we're at about 6.5 grams. So quite a bit, I would say, is a little bit too fine. Now, this is the setting that I prefer and has really been performing extremely well for me. This is also on the very low end of filter coffee, according to the settings that they have on the top of the grinder dial. So if we went coarser, we're probably gonna shift this distribution quite a bit, but there are quite a few fines, at least on this finest setting. All right, so we're gonna go a little bit finer. I have a 500 in top and a 400 in the bottom. I probably won't go much finer in this because they're just such small particles at that point. It doesn't really matter. So I forget what I said, the 6 point something. This is the 6 point whatever grams, and we're gonna work it through. At least my first impression is there's not gonna be a whole lot make it through this 500, which is a good thing. And that does make a lot of sense because of the setting that we're on. We're on the low setting for drip, at least according to the manufacturer. Okay, I worked through this. This is the 500 screen. That's pretty much all that we have. You can tell looking close. Pretty nice cut. Pretty nice. The burrs cut nice. And that's about how much we have at the 500 screen and then the 400. So this is the dust that is less than 400. I'm sure there's some stuck on the bottom side of the screen that I'll try to separate out, but that's what we're looking at for the less than 600, at least on this setting. So let's go ahead and do a quick weight of both of these. So the 600 to 500 range, we're at about 2.2 grams. The bigger than 400 but smaller than 500, we're at about 3.2 grams. And then I consider these kind of the ultra fines. These are less than 400 on the screens, so we're talking extremely fine particles. So here's that 18 grams, pretty much after we've divided it out into its various particle sizes. Starting over here on the left, this is everything less than 400. Next we have 400 to 500, 500 to 600, 600 to 1200, which is really what we were looking for in terms of our pour over. And then everything bigger than 1200. So what does all this mean? The grinder might produce a fair amount of fines, at least on this setting. Awesome setting, I think, for AeroPress. I even go finer than this. It really brings out the richness of the coffee. You can probably go up to maybe like a setting 60, and it's going to shift a lot of these over, but you're going to get a little bit more of the boulders. Not a big deal. People think it needs to be like this unimotal burr, kind of like this DF64E that I have here that has the SSP. I guarantee that those have a much finer distribution than the DF83. But if we were to look at this, I try to explain this to people as a graph. I have my dry erase marker. Let's see. It's going to start coming up. This is going to be like our peak. And that's kind of like where we're at. And this is really what we're targeting right here. So you do have quite a few fines. I don't really see it as necessarily a bad thing. But we're going to look at it as espresso next time, so make sure to subscribe, come back. I'm not going to have time today to shoot that video today. But this is on setting 50 on the DF83. So really the low end of what you should be using for drip anyway. But I felt like that was a good number to use for this test. Previously, when I've done it with espresso grinders, I pretty much just dial it in to where I feel the shot tastes good and pulls good, and I consider that a good setting. So everyone's beans are going to be a little bit different. I'm really not even sure what this blend was that I used, but it's kind of a nice medium blend bean and really makes some beautiful V60, Chemex, and espresso. So thanks for watching. Subscribe. I try to do some cool stuff, try to explain kind of how these grinders are going to work. The Crew sifter is a really neat addition. I don't use it all the time, but it has been really cool if I want to basically make like a cutoff of, I don't want anything finer than this or anything coarser than that. Makes it really easy to sift out all those kind of outlier grounds that you don't want in your cup. So give them a visit on their website. I think it's crewvinc.com. I've got some other cool stuff from them as well. I got their full set of sifters here. So it starts at 200 and goes up to 1600. And then over, I can't get to it easily. I have their ruler. It's a ruler, and you can kind of like rub the grounds through it and see approximately where you're at. If you're just trying to do like a quick, am I even close type calibration with your fingers and that ruler. So really cool stuff. But that's the look at the DF83 for what I would use for probably Chemex and V60. Probably more V60. Chemex I go probably coarser. But I feel like that was a pretty good setting for today. So thanks for watching.